Andrew Peak is a former senior director for European and Russian affairs at the National Security Council. He's currently a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, and he joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Andrew Peak, good to see you.
Thanks, Michelle. Great to see you also.
You know, it is one thing for Russia to make accusations of any kind. We've seen that time and time again. It's another thing for them to make outlandish claims on state TV, but quite another altogether for the defense minister to be calling people and saying that something nuclear is about to happen. How worried are you and your counterparts that something's imminent here?
I think it's part of Russian signaling behavior. I am not panicking yet. Worried but not panicking would be the tagline. You know, Shoigu is not, despite his uniform, a military man. He's the defense minister of Russia, but he's really a political loyalist to Putin. So what having him make the calls to his counterparts in Britain, in France and Germany means is it's a political signal. It's not actually a military signal on the ground. And I think it's part and parcel of Russia telling the civilians in that area to evacuate to the east bank of the Dnieper River. It is trying to scare the West into believing that Russia is going to use some kind of nuclear device without Russia actually having to use the device itself.
Yeah, so, okay, for those watching who are completely confused and saying, okay, well, it's war. Is it outside the realm of possibility that Ukraine would try to do something like this to blame Russia?
No, except that Ukraine is actually on the offensive in this situation. It makes no sense to detonate nuclear weapons or even a radiological bomb, a so-called dirty bomb, in the area that they're planning to move troops into, that you're planning to liberate. It makes total sense to do it if you are trying to shorten your front, if you are trying to block off that area.
Exactly.
So you can move troops from the south out to the east where you're facing serious counterattacks.
You know, what are the possibilities? How easy is it to make some kind of dirty bomb? I mean, for Russia, a nuclear state with all sorts of capabilities in that area, would this be something simple that they could pull off?
Yeah, absolutely. Dirty bombs are very easy to make. You remember back in 2001, after the 9/11 attacks, this was really the concern, that terrorists would detonate a dirty bomb in a place like Times Square because comparative to a nuclear a fission or a fusion reaction, which is what a nuclear bomb requires, dirty bombs are very easy. It just requires scattering radioactive material around a populated area. By comparison, to create an actual nuclear explosion, you have to have a relatively sophisticated device that creates a chain reaction based on highly enriched uranium or plutonium that only a few countries in the world can make.
You know, Andrew, you served in the Trump administration, and Donald Trump insisted on things like meeting one-on-one with Vladimir Putin, with nobody else around to take notes or listen, meeting one-on-one with high-level Russian officials, shaking down Ukraine, trying to offer aid, but in exchange for investigating his political opponent. When you have conversations with your former counterparts from that era, what are the reactions to what is happening now?
You know, I think we felt a little aggrieved, actually, Michelle, because we would say that, look, by policy, the policy of the United States on Ukraine during that period was pretty good. And we did things that the Obama administration definitely did not during the Ukraine wars in 2014 and then later the second flare-up in 2015, such as provide lethal aid to the Ukrainians. And yet the narrative was so out of control all the time that never quite trickled down to match the what I would call battlefield reality. And I would give you a second piece of grievance, and I realize this is not the Andrew Peak grievance channel, but what I would say is that when we left office, when I left office in 2020, the cross-border incidents, cross-border fires, artillery pieces firing back and forth was at its lowest level since before the fighting in 2014. So I would say that the sense of grievance above all, but tremendous concern for Ukraine, of course.
Andrew, when are you going to tell the story of why and how you left the Trump administration? Are you going to tell us here?
Yeah, it's not too much of a mystery, Michelle. There was an accusation of leaking, and the White House suspended my security clearance, and it was never resolved. So it was an awful period of my life.
Oh, gosh. All right, Andrew, I really appreciate your sharing your insights with us on this.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I appreciate it.